Okay, today I'm going to be going over my August reads. I read 12 books, so I think I did really good this month. That's like the most books I've read in a month all year. I've been reading less this year. Like last year, I read 150 books, I think, but this year I've read 49 so far, and it's almost the end of the year. But it's okay. I was in the midst of a move and everything. It was just like I was busy, okay? My cat is just leaning against the tripod and it's not a good tripod, so I'm afraid she's just gonna knock it down. Monster. So yeah, August was a pretty good reading month for me. I had three 5-star reads. My boyfriend says that I rate books too highly. That as long as I enjoyed it, I usually give it like 4 or 5 stars. And he's not wrong. So I've gotten a little more critical in my rating. I was just talking to my mom about this. Only books that I feel like I consistently only give like 3 stars unless they super wow amaze me is romance books because I don't know, it's just not my favorite genre and I feel like a lot of it kind of reads the same. That sounds bad. It just I have not read that many different romance authors, so it like really needs to wow me to be 5 stars. But the only 5-star romance, like that's strictly romance, not like a romance subplot. But the only 5-star one I've read recently that comes to mind is Funny Story by Emily Henry, which I love. My boyfriend got me the Waterstones edition. She's she's beautiful. Anyway, I've just been talking. So let's get into these books that I read in August. I have like 4 pages of notes here with my terrible handwriting. I'm going to give a little synopsis of each book and then my thoughts about it and my rating out of 5 stars. I'm going to try to do no spoilers. I will try do my best to not give any spoilers. I pretty much just give you the summary that's like really similar to the Goodreads summary of the book in case you aren't familiar with the book. And then I'm going to give my thoughts about it, but it's going to be quick. I don't want to spend too long because I already talked about lots of these books in my reading vlog and my 24-hour readathon videos. So I already went over some of these and gave like more in-depth thoughts. So this is just going to be like a vague thoughts and feelings about it. This month started out really good for me with a 4.75-star read, and that was with Voice Like a Hyacinth by Mallory Pearson. This book is told from Joe Kozak's perspective, and she's an art student at this very competitive art school. She's a painter, and she lives with her 4 roommates who are also painters and competing for the same like position in their program. It's this like solo art show that one of them gets to do at the end of the year. And basically, these girls are all so devoted to their craft that they will do anything to keep their inspiration alive. And due to this, they resort to some occult activities, which, as you can imagine, chaos ensues after that. I personally loved how obsessed the friends were with each other. Like, I've never read a friend group that was so close knit and super involved, and they all love each other so much. It's sometimes bad how well they know each other, but I loved it, and it had great LGBTQ representation. It gave the craft vibes and also dark academia vibes, so I loved it. It was right up my alley, and the only reason it wasn't 5 stars just because the end was just left me wanting a little bit more, but it was so good, and I highly recommend. The second book I read is this one. This is Dinner for Vampires by Bethany Joy Lenz. I talked about this in my reading vlog, I believe. So Bethany, if you don't know, played Haley in One Tree Hill, which I love. And this book is like a memoir about her secret double life in a cult that she later escapes and realizes a cult. She didn't even realize it was a cult for the longest time. But yeah, it just goes through her experiences with the cult and leaving the cult, and it's so good. I never knew this, and I'm such a big fan of One Tree Hill, and I did not know she went through this. A perfect read for me, since I love One Tree Hill and I have a fascination with cults. I watch a lot of documentaries about cults, so like reading it, I could see the signs that this was a cult, but when you're in it, I'm sure it's like you don't notice it. It's crazy. I also loved Bethany's honesty, and I feel like she had like dark humor. What she went through is insane, and I'm glad she got out eventually. My third read was another book that I already talked a lot about in my reading vlog, and that is Chlorine by Jade Song. So if you watched that, you know that I loved this book so much. This was 5 stars for me too. So 2 5-star books in a row, that is so rare. That is so rare. It follows the swimmer Ren Yu, who grew up on like mermaid stories, and she constantly aches to be in the water. So she joins a swim team and ends up being like super successful on the swim team. But she doesn't care as much about that as being in the water all the time. And that leads her down a pretty crazy path. I loved it. It was unhinged, which is totally my vibe. It was beautifully written, it was disturbing. At the same time, I rooted for Ren Yu. I was like, do what you want, girl, be happy. That was another 5 stars. I highly recommend that one. The next one, I don't really recommend that much. That is Luckiest Girl Alive by Jessica Knoll. This was 2 stars for me. Sadly, I thought this was going to be a really good read. I I liked the plot. The plot is about Annie Finelli, who went through super shocking and horrifying events at her prestigious high school. Now she has a glamorous job, a rich fiance. Life is seemingly going like perfect for her, but she has secrets. They start coming back up because she's filming a documentary. Well, she's not filming that, but she's getting interviewed for a documentary about some events that occurred at her school. So I loved the plot idea here. The thing is, the character was super unlikable, and I tried to give her grace because of her experiences that she went through. Obviously, like terrible stuff, and I felt so bad for her. But ultimately, I could not get past like how unlikable she was. Kind of a mean girl. Not my thing. There's also some really touchy topics that I feel like the book just didn't handle, or I feel like the author just didn't handle that well. I don't know. This was 2 stars for me, but I wouldn't say don't read it. You might love it. The fifth book I read was Someone Knows by Vi Keelan. This was another 2 stars for me. I talked about this one in a video too vaguely, as most of these books I did. This is about an English professor, Elizabeth, and she starts receiving chapters from an online student about events that she is very familiar with. She is trying to figure out who this person is that's sending her these chapters, even going back to her hometown that she never wanted to return to investigate. And this is another one where I liked the plot, and I think the plot had potential. It was super repetitive in my opinion. It was very predictable. I like immediately predicted who the person sending the chapters was going to be. And the female main character, also not that likable, much like the last book. And the ending was bad. Bad ending, in my opinion. Left me wanting a lot more than what we got. So yeah, I listened to that one audiobook. Wasn't for me. But luckily after this, I had another 5-star read, and that was reading The Compound by Aileen Rowell, I think. Sorry if I mispronounce any of these names or anything, but this was 5 stars. This is about Lily, who wakes up on a remote desert island with like 19 other contestants for a reality TV show, where they compete in challenges, try not to get sent home by like coupling up. At least in the beginning, they have to couple up and like have someone sleeping by them at the end of the night to not get sent home. The stakes get raised further along they go in the game, and it gets pretty crazy. And Lily is adamant on winning, no matter the cost. I thought it was super interesting. I thought that the story got a lot deeper than I expected and a lot darker than I expected, which I really enjoyed. I like dark reads, so it was right up my alley. There's times when I'm like not even sure I want to root for Lily because she's a little cuckoo bananas at times, but I think all the characters were flawed and complex. Like, that's how humans are. So I felt it was realistic. In a more dystopian world, I could see this happening. That was sadly my last 5-star read of the month, but it's okay. Still got some more good books here. The next one, though, was my least favorite book that I read in a long time, and that is Never by Jessa Hastings. This was 1 star for me, and I ranted about this a lot in my I think it was in my 24-hour reading challenge video. But basically, to sum it up, it's about Wendy's granddaughter. I think in the video I said it was Wendy's daughter, but I was wrong. It's Wendy's granddaughter, Daphne, and she's taken to Neverland by now older Peter Pan, but she's torn between him and Captain Hook's son, Jameson. And that's basically the entire plot. Not much else goes on the whole book. They kind of build up something to happen at the end, but it's ultimately disappointing. I thought the book was like a nothing burger, like nothing happened. None of the characters were likable. I don't think there was any through line in the plot. I hated Peter Pan in this so much. But I didn't like Jameson either because there's some terrible age gaps with the characters here. As I said in the other video that I read it in, Jameson's like counting down the days till she turns 18 to do anything with her, which is just creepy. Like, I don't know. I should have DNF'd it, but I sadly love to torture myself, and I rarely DNF books, even when I hate them. So that's on me. But yeah, this was 1 star. I don't think I'll be reading anything else by this author in the future, but let me know if her other books are better than this, because I know she's pretty popular, but I didn't like it. It was not for me. The 8th book I read was Liquid, a Love Story by Mariam Ramani. This was a 3.75 stars for me. It was really good. It's about an Iranian Indian American who is failing at finding success in her career after completing her PhD. It's like 2 years after completing her PhD, and she just is not having that much success in her career. So she's complaining about this to her friend Adam, and he jokingly suggests that she try to marry rich because, I mean, they live in LA, tons of rich dudes. So she sets a plan to go on 100 dates and get engaged to one of these dates. Towards the second half of the book, a family emergency happens, and the tone of the book vastly changes, but I think in a good way. It wasn't what I was expecting, but I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say that it reads like if you were expecting a romance going into it doesn't read like a romance in my opinion. The prose was beautiful though. I liked the abrupt change of the tone in the second half, but the ending to me left a little bit to be desired. So ultimately it was 3.75 stars, almost 4 stars for me, but I think maybe I would have rated it higher if I hadn't gone in like expecting more of a romance, because it kind of frames it as a romance. So the ninth book I read is Jill is Not Happy by Kiara Rauda, I believe. This was 1.75 stars for me. This is about Jill Tingley and her husband, who were college sweethearts, but years later, after their daughter graduates high school and is in college now, and they're so many years into their marriage, and they've grown far apart. Jill decides what they need is a road trip to Utah, where she thinks she can convince Jack to stay with her, even though he's pretty adamant on them splitting up. But throughout this trip, we learn a lot of secrets about Jill. Ultimately, I feel like the characters in this book were super one dimensional. The story felt really repetitive to me. It was like a push and pull between them the whole time. And the ending was super, super unsatisfying. I did not like the ending. It was a fast read, but I still found myself waiting for it to be over. So, but I talked about that a little bit in the reading the 24-hour readathon I did too. So I give a little bit more in-depth thoughts in that video. The next book I read, and I have not talked about this in a video. Finally, something I haven't talked about. But that is Penance by Eliza Clark. This was 5 stars, which this author is always 5 stars for me. Like, I I think this is the only book of hers I hadn't read, so it was no surprise that I loved it. It was different than her other books, I believe, but still amazing. It's like a decade after the murder of Joan? Is it Joan or Joanne? I think it's Joan. Joan Wilson, and she's murdered by other teen girls in her school at Crow-on-Sea. And the story is being published for the first time by this journalist, Alec Ziccarelli. He goes to Crow-on-Sea and interviews a bunch of people that were involved and learns history about the town and writes an account of what happened. In the end, you're not sure how true everything is, so that's interesting. I love like an unreliable narrator. I liked how the book was set up, like in interview portions. It was like kind of like in 3 parts, focusing on each girl that was involved, or a little bit more in 3 parts, but it was like each part focused more on each girl involved. If you love true crime like I do, this read like a true crime documentary, and I loved it. It was super dark and compelling. And if you were ever a Tumblr girly, Tumblr is heavily involved in this story. I wasn't so much a Tumblr girly, but I know enough about it to get the concept. But yeah, if you were a Tumblr girly, I think you'll love it. I cannot recommend it enough. I love Eliza Clark's books. I love Boy Parts. It's one of the that's the first book of hers I read, and she's just amazing. The 11th book I read is Andromeda by Therese Bowman. This was 3.25 stars for me. It's translated from Swedish, and it's about a girl at a publishing house who starts as like an intern, but she's kind of taken under the wing of Gunnar, who is the publishing director of Andromeda, and he's very high up in the company, and he kind of takes her under his wing, and she gets higher up in her career, and their relationship evolves more, and ultimately I believe this is a lit fic, So if you are into lit pics, I think you'll like it. It was really beautiful prose, and I love that we get both the main characters and we get Gunnar's perspective towards the end, which I liked. And I mean, if you're looking for like a super interesting plot, it's not going to be for you. But if you're a fan of lit fic, I highly recommend it. It wasn't my favorite, but it was good and it was beautiful prose. And yeah, 3.25 stars for me. Okay, the very last book I actually started before August, and it was on my August TBR, but took me a bit to get through. I've read it before, and that is Frankenstein. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I have this beautiful edition of it that you can see the camera reflection in. I read this years and years and years ago, so it was a reread for me. But I love Frankenstein. I assume most people know what it's about, but basically, it's about Frankenstein making a monster, Frankenstein's monster. I even have this necklace from Well Read Co. I don't know if you can see. It's a little anatomical heart, and it's inspired by Frankenstein. So I'm a big fan, but it was not 5 stars. Only because the beginning took me a bit to get into, kind of slow for me, but that's with a lot of classics, so I wasn't surprised. But I think this book paved the way for so much of the horror genre. You can't deny how much impact it had on like horror media in general. So an amazing book. Yeah, that was all 12 books that I read in August. I think it's lucky I had so many 5 star reads. It doesn't usually happen. I don't know what was in the air, but I really enjoyed all the books I read this month. Even if I didn't like them, I still enjoyed complaining about them to my boyfriend and to you guys. So, yeah, that's my reading wrap up for the month. And the next video will be my September TBR. So, if you're interested in that, maybe give me a little subscribe if you wanna. But yeah, I will see you in my next video. Bye.